The call of the "Good morning, boys" echoing from the corridor woke Alan up at 7. The first thing he did was to make sure that he still had his photo and check to see whether Stanley was alright. Stanley was very quiet. He put a thumb up at Alan and smiled as he got out of bed as if nothing happened. Another female member of the staff knocked on the door and entered the room. "Good morning, boys," she said. "How are you today, Stanley?" "I'm happy, Maureen," Stanley replied. "Did you receive well, Stanley?" "I don't know," he said. She turned to Alan. "And you must be the new boy, Alan." "Good morning, Alan," she said, almost skipping away to the next room. Alan put the photo in his bag and followed the crowd. This time he managed to get a watch and then went down for breakfast in the large dining hall. First, the boys had to line up and choose their meal. They could have bacon, eggs, toast, sausage, tomatoes, and cornflakes in any combination. The tables were laid out in 3 parallel lines. The boys were watched by over 3 members of staff, the bubbly posh lady who had not woken Alan up, and 2 men whom Alan had not seen before. Alan was not sure what to eat, but it was food, but not food as he knew it. He played it safe and had toast and tea. He wasn't sure of where to sit, and for a while he stood with his tray looking for a place until he spotted Mustafa, the boy who had given him the warning about Sweeney. The seat next to Mustafa was empty, and Alan went to sit next to him. "Is it okay if I sit here, please?" No worries, you're safe," Mustafa replied. A boy on the other side of the seat just glanced at Alan before tucking into his breakfast. Mustafa began speaking to Alan as he was simply continuing this conversation from the night before. "I ain't trying to frighten you, you know. I'm just telling you, girl, you have to watch out." Alan nodded his head in reply. Mustafa continued. "Thing with that Sweeney is that you let him get away with stuff, he'll keep coming back to you." He pointed his finger at someone over the table. "You see him?" Alan replied. "I share a room with him. He's Stanley. Sweeney beat him up once, and now every time Sweeney wants extra biscuits or something, Stanley gives it to him. Shame, man. Sweeney troubled me once, and me and him fight. You check. I would bust him up if staff never came, but he don't mess with me now. Stanley's soft." "He talks too much," Alan replied. "For sure. If you let him talk, he'll just talk you crazy. I've actually seen a guy talk him to sleep. For real. He's weird, but it's not his fault. His dad died in the Gulf War." "The Gulf?" Alan said, looking down his breakfast while trying to make sense of it. "Why the Gulf? Why Aden?" "No," Mustafa slowed down. "Not the Gulf of Aden. That boy died in the Persian Gulf War, you know. The Saddam Hussein, Iraq, Kuwait. It's in the Middle East of where Britain fought there and the Americans, and that's where his father died." "Oh, that's sad," Alan said, feeling for Stanley, but trying not hard to think of the war himself he had left behind. "That's not all, man," Mustafa continued. "When his father died, his mother lost it. She went loony. She used to lock him up for hours in his room, and sometimes he cried too much. She would just take the light bulbs out and leave him in the dark. Could you imagine that? Yeah, man. Left in the dark for hours, serious hours, you know. Sometimes she'd be gone all night, and sometimes he was starving to death. Wickedness, man, pure wickedness." Alan looked towards Stanley, who was talking away to someone. He felt that he understood him a bit more now, and he was trying to think of something he could say to him, some words of comfort. Then he thought he could get plenty of time for that later, and then couldn't really go up to him because he knew his life story. Mustafa spoke again. "He's weird. He don't harm no one, but he's weird." "He's had a very bad dream last night," Alan said, chewing on his toast. "Bad dream?" Mustafa replied. "That guy had the nightmares. That guy woke up screaming his head off in the night. He even goes sleepwalking. He walks in his sleep talking to his mother. I don't want to frighten you, but everyone knows it." "What's your name again?" Alan asked in an abrupt change of subject. "I was told, but I forgot." "Mustafa," the boy replied proudly. "And you're Alan, I know." The boys got down for their breakfast. Alan was feeling much more wiser in the conversation, and wondered if he found a friend in Mustafa. After breakfast, all the boys returned upstairs to brush their teeth and make their beds. Alan spoke very little to Stanley, not trying to start him off on another rant, although he did ask him what would be happening next. Stanley told him that he'd all had to go to the recreation room. If there were any special jobs to be done, boys would be picked up from there, but maybe there would be a trip somewhere. But boys that went on trips had to be there a little longer than one day. Alan finished making his bed and went down to the recreation room. Once again he found himself standing alone watching the other boys. They seemed to be playing the same games in the same groups. It seemed as if Alan had not been able to sleep at all. Nothing had changed except for the staff members. The only time any of the boys spoke to Alan was when the table football flew over the table and Alan handed it back to one of them. All they said was cheers, but it was enough to keep Alan's mind wondering what cheers meant. Then there was Mustafa. He tended to sit alone at most of the time looking out the window. As Alan went to walk away and venture somewhere else in the room, someone bumped into him from the side. "Sorry, mate, but I meant it." It was Sweeney and his two friends. Alan tried several times to walk away, but one of them would block him each time he tried. He wanted to avoid panicking, conscious he was in a room full of people. He looked around for help. Everyone was doing their thing, and all those that did catch a glimpse of the standoff were looking away as if seeing nothing. Mustafa was unaware of what was happening. "Right," said Sweeney, placing himself in front of Alan. You messed with me already. Right now, I'm going to show you that you can't mess with me again. First off, I'm going to give you a chance. Today we have delicious cotton chips and beautiful broccoli for dinner. All I want you to do is give me your cotton chips and you can enjoy your broccoli in peace. It won't be make me and you best friends, but life will be much easier for you. Alan tried to show no fear. You'll get your own chips, and if there's left over, you can get some more. Why do you want my chips? Sweeney took a step forward, placing him inches away from Alan. As he spoke into Alan's face, Alan could smell his bacon breath. At this time of danger, Alan still found a moment to think. This boy has not cleaned his teeth. "I want your chips, that's all you need to know," Sweeney said, smiling wickedly and breathing all over Alan's face. "Well, I don't think I'm having any dinner," Alan replied in an attempt to outsmart him. "Well," Sweeney said, spraying bacon-flavoured saliva all over his nose. "That's even better. You have nothing to lose then, do you? Just get the cotton chips and give them to me. That'll save you from getting a kicking, would it?" Sweeney spoke fast. Alan didn't catch all of that said, but he tried his principles and he was going to stick to them. "I don't care what you say, I'm not giving you any food." The moment Alan finished his sentence, Sweeney struck him with a fist in his solar plexus. Alan's breath was completely taken away as he went down, and Sweeney kicked him under the chin, causing him to bite his tongue. The pain was excruciating. Alan was not repaired. All he could do at the moment was cling onto Sweeney's legs. Sweeney was unable to kick him, but he rained down a whole heap of punches on Alan's head and back. Alan could hear other boys cheering Sweeney on, as he couldn't understand why no one was coming to his rescue. He clung on for dear life, but as the shouting got louder and the punches increased. Quickly, Alan had a change of heart. He had to defend himself. He could no longer be passive. He held onto Sweeney's feet with one hand and then used the other hand to push him over. Sweeney fell. There was now a scrap on the floor. They traded kicks and punches at the rate of six per second. Alan noticed that he was feeling extra kicks, but those kicks were not coming from Sweeney.
Yo! Recording this quick films video, bro.
Bro, how dare you, bro? How dare you? How dare you? You interrupted my reading.
Keep reading, bro. Don't be scared. Keep reading. Don't leave.
Quickly, Alan had a change of heart. He had to defend himself. He could no longer be passive. He held onto Sweeney's feet and with one hand and then used the other hand to push him over. Sweeney fell. There was now a scrap on the floor. They traded kicks and punches at a rate of 6 seconds. Alan noticed that he was feeling extra kicks, but those kicks were not coming from Sweeney, but there was nothing he could do against them. He just had to do his best with the aggressor in hand. Suddenly, Alan felt a change in the action. It was Mustafa. He wasn't fighting, he was trying to step him. Just then came those multiple words. "Break it up, lads, that's enough." Mustafa backed up and the two male members of staff began pulling them apart, but the two boys still desperately tried to kick and punch each other as the last punch was a matter of pride. They eventually were separated and both panted hard for breath, even though, like most fights, it had actually lasted around 1 minute. As they were both being held back from each other, Alan stayed silent, not confident enough to speak English and fight at the same time. Sweeney started threats as he rehearsed them multiple times. "I'll kill you. You don't mess with me and get away with it. I'll turn your lights out. You're dead. You understand? You're dead meat. I really mean dead." Alan was quite shocked by the whole episode. It all happened so quickly and so unexpectedly. But what for? Alan's biggest pain came from his first punctured stomach. He looked to Sweeney. His nose was bleeding. "You do all this for some chips?" They were both taken to the staff room and given the usual warnings, except they couldn't be threatened with detention or extra homework. Sweeney was warned if he had being prepared for a court case that he needed to be on his best behaviour. Alan was told not to use violence or overcome violence, but to report all violent acts to the member of staff. This was rubbish, of course, and Alan knew it. He was tempted to ask how practical it was to report an act of violence after he'd just been grinded, considering how quickly the next kicks followed up, but he decided not to. For the rest of the day, Alan felt miserable. He spoke to little of anyone, and no one made an effort to speak to him. Only Mustafa asked if he was okay, and he was sorry about what happened and he did warn him about Sweeney. Stanley wanted to talk to Hours, but the type of gun he planned to buy. But Alan decided to walk away and leave him talk to himself. One of the two other boys saw him and said no more than all right. But Alan knew by then when most people said all right, they didn't really mean are you all right. He thought this was a gross misuse of language, and he couldn't just understand how they could say all right and then walk away without waiting for an answer. What made the rest of the day difficult was Sweeney and his two friends. Every time they saw him, they gave him dirty looks, and every time they were near him, they threatened him. At the dinner table, Alan had nothing to eat, but Sweeney came over to him and sent him to tell him they had unfinished business. Alan didn't say a word. He hardly said a word for the rest of the day, but by now he decided that the words weren't enough, and now was the time for action.